Yeah, just a quick one from me, Eddie. Were you perhaps a little bit frustrated that it took this long to get the rematch in place for Warrington, considering that tonight, although it was very, very even and exciting and entertaining for a lot of it, we perhaps didn't see both of them at their
Yeah, I think probably the fight should have happened a year ago, but sometimes it doesn't. I mean, we probably did a better gate than we did for the first fight tonight. I thought the atmosphere was sensational. I thought Lee Wood boxed really, really well tonight. I think Josh Warrington's timing wasn't what it once was. I think that's expected. But I don't want to take anything away from Lee's performance. I thought he boxed really well. Switched stances, was really awkward in there, very heavy-handed. I thought the last 4 rounds were quite frustrating because you could tell Josh had kind of had the soul beaten out of him, and then although he was kept trying, ultimately he wasn't good enough to win tonight.
Yeah, and even going into the later stages though, even though Josh's tank seemed quite depleted, because he's always been famed for that intensity, was there a party that thought there could be another sort of twist in the tail?
Yeah, I actually thought, probably up until about the 10th round, I actually thought Josh Warrington still had a chance in the fight. I thought he hurt Lee Wood to the body once, but as the fight went on, his power looked like it was depleting as well, and I felt like, if there's anyone going to get stoppage, it's going to be Lee Wood.
Oh, cheers,
Eddie, can you just talk about how important those nights are for British boxing? Like, these two guys are pretty unique, but that was a unique atmosphere as well. You were saying a week that these shows are kind of your bread and butter, but can you just talk about...
Yeah, I just don't think you really see atmospheres like that anywhere in the world. I mean, other than, local to here relatively, I know like Belfast, and, next week we're in Phoenix, Arizona, we're going to have 10,000 for Nunes and Navarrete. I think that'll be wild, but it's just a bit different in there. But that's quite unique, where you've got almost like 2 football clubs supporting their own. And what makes the atmosphere so special in there tonight was like 1,500 from Leeds, the rest from Nottingham, the songs going backwards and forwards, the ring walk, the production was great, Diamante was on great form, the lighting, everything looked really, really good. The fight disappointed a little bit on the closing stages, but I thought Lee Wood boxed really, really well, and the atmosphere was great.
Eddie, we saw a Dave Allen tonight who said he was going to do something, and then he went out and did it.
Yeah.
I had a chat with Jamie Moore this week, and he said to Jamie, I'm not going to listen to anything you say, I'm just going to go and do that, and then he went and did it. So, obviously, when Dave puts his mind to something, he can get it done. Reactport and TKV have now been sanctioned to do the British. Is there an inkling that maybe Dave could fight the winner, or are you looking at...
he didn't do what he promised tonight, but he also did what he was supposed to do, which is to go out and just destroy a guy that was kind of a level below him. To be fair, that guy's done a few 10 rounds for the French heavyweight title, but Dave is a big, big lump. He's 20 stone. When he hits you on the back of the head or the top of the head and actually lets his hands go, he's a real handful. But he doesn't tend to always do that in the big moments. Again, against Makhmudov, same kind of thing, but it's another level. It's a big, big gulf between the 2 opponents. So tonight was nice. It was probably the best atmosphere for a 6-rounder I've ever witnessed. And everybody loves Dave Allen. And I said to him tonight, you've got 2 choices. You can go back and headline in a 50-50 fight, or a fight that you're an underdog in, or you can have a step up from tonight and go back on an undercard and just build towards that fight. He actually prefers the latter, because I just think Dave lacks a little bit of confidence, and I think sometimes he doesn't quite believe in himself at that level, which is a bit frustrating, because I think actually he is a handful when he actually lets his hands go, but I think sometimes it just feels like I think he doubts himself at that level. So I'd just like to get him in the best, I would say, physical condition, but ultimately I'm not sure we're ever going to get that from Dave Allen. I've kind of half given up that we're going to, and I actually think sometimes the lump that he is tonight, I think sometimes he's more dangerous at that weight. Sometimes he gets himself fit and doesn't seem to have the same, I don't know what it is, but I love Dave. I just think he's just amazing, and people genuinely love him. I think that there's only so much you can get away with. Like tonight was okay because he had a 12-round war with Makhmudov where he took a lot of punishment. So you get away with a lower level fight, but you can't just have 5 of them. If you want to have another 8 or 10 rounds, there's got to be a step up. But when you gamble, that will be his last big gamble at that stage, and then he must be ready to win.
I've just got 2 questions. So the first question, would you advise Josh Warrington to call it a day, or do you think he should go on?
I think it's a very sort of personal opinion. Like he was really down tonight because he said I trained so hard. Like in the gym, my sparring was great, my times were great, my strength was great, and you know I couldn't make it happen. I said to him, well, that's because Lee Wood boxed really well, and that's also because you're not quite the fighter that you once were. You're still a brilliant fighter, but your timing's a little bit off. And if someone boxes like Lee did tonight and gets the game plan spot on, then you know you're going to be frustrated. And sometimes there's an activity. These guys aren't quite fighting as much as they used to. But I think Lee deserves the credit for that. You know, he boxed really well. Like I said, he switched stances. He looked very heavy-handed in there tonight. Probably, I said, you know, maybe once to the body. Josh landed a decent shot, but other than that, you know, it was a pretty straightforward victory. Even though his face doesn't suggest that, you know. But sometimes when you fight Josh, you know, it's a physical battle, and it was a big win for Lee Wood tonight. Just there, right?
Eddie, there's a famous saying in boxing that if you want loyalty, get a dog. And when I was training with Prince Nazim and Brendan Ingle in the 90s, in the gym, I saw a similar thing where the fighters were split and said, no, the fighters taking the punches. And a lot of people went with the fighter's opinion. A lot of people went with the trainer's opinion. Would you say that the thing that's happened with Conor, that the one thing that hurts you the most is that it could have been communicated a lot better to yourself?
Yeah, no, I go with the fighter's opinion, to be honest with you, which is I think the fighters always deserve the best deal. And there's a way to do that, you know. Like there's a code of, as far as I'm concerned, of loyalty and respect and honesty. And that honesty is, hi Eddie, I've got a bit of a problem. Someone's come on to me and made me this offer. What do you think I should do? You're my guy. Like there are guys, I'm like, you know, people reach out to Anthony Joshua, right, all the time. Now, he has a career-long deal with us, but regardless, as soon as that message comes through, it's with me within a couple of minutes. Because what he says is, Eddie's my guy, and he sends it straight to me. Johnny Fisher, the other day, got invited to the Netflix press conference. He turned up there, and some guys from Saudi Arabia and Spencer Brown and those guys said, Johnny, we want you on this show. And the first thing he did, when he left a few minutes later, was call me straight away and tell me, I want to tell you what just happened, you know, and I've told him to call you, right? I will never ever begrudge or let a fighter have an opportunity slip that is just too good for their career. So I agree with the fighters, but you have to put your trust in me and say, you know, and all that was is just a conversation to say, listen, Eddie, I've had this mad offer. What do you think we should do? I would say, listen, let's go to the zone. Let's see what we can do. And if we can't get anywhere near, we have to seriously consider taking this offer. Now, under no circumstances would I say, you're not taking that. You can't, because that's just not the way we operate at all. So, and I just felt like I deserved a call rather than an email from a lawyer, you know.
Because it was just for one fight, right? So
we'll see. I think it's a bit of a red herring, but you know, the world's mad. I've seen so much stuff. Was it Charlie Edwards commenting on a post game? This is 100%. They're playing up here. Like this is scripted. So what do you mean it's fucking scripted? Oh yeah, great script. Yeah, mug me off. Yeah, you know, there's no script about it. This is just what happened. So, but again, like, I knew about this on Friday. So for me now, time is a healer, and I'm quite chill. Like literally, I've never had the support I've had today. It's been unbelievable. It's like someone's passed away. People are coming up to me going, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. I wasn't quite okay on Friday, but you know, it's just time. But I just felt like, you know, I went, you know, there's a lot of people in this room. Andy I spoke to earlier, see Mr. McKenna at the back. They know what, you know, the hill I died on during those 2 years. But I won't go back down because I believe it. So, you know, and I said, I messaged Anthony Fowler earlier. He's like, yeah, well, Eddie would, you know, the only reason Eddie stuck up for him before was because of the money. There was no money. I was giving him money. You know what I mean? I wasn't asking for it back. I was just in deep. And it's like, and even with the Eubank money that we made, we only covered our losses from the show that fell through. But it was principle. And I believed him, and that's my loyalty towards him of having his back and making sure that all the bullets that came in, I stood there like Batfink, and I took them all while he was behind me. You know, it's just the way we are.
Just hearing. Eddie, we've obviously already seen the clash between Zuffa and Maurizio Sulaiman, and we know Zuffa maybe wants to move away from the original bouts. What do you think this move to Zuffa means for maybe Conor Benn's #1 position with the WBC?
I don't think we've all, Conor's absolute sole principle is money. And I don't begrudge that at all. Some people want legacy, some people want money. I would like a mix of both for the fighters. I think legacy, and I actually had a conversation, we had lunch in New York about 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, and I said to him, me personally, to see you win a world title will be the most incredible thing. Because when you came into the sport, you were awful. And now he's become a world-class fighter. And he's worked so hard, by the way. But I'll tell you something now, Tony Sims, the job that Tony Sims has done on Conor Benn will go down as one of the most incredible training jobs I've ever seen. Because, and you need a good student, and Conor's work ethic is incredible. But Tony Sims has produced a world-class fighter out of absolute, couldn't even say hardly like a white collar fight, honestly, when he started. It's been amazing to see. And I said to Conor Benn at the lunch, if you win a world title like your dad, it will be the most incredible achievement from you. And because I wanted him to fight Lewis Crocker, but he didn't want that fight, obviously, the IBF, and he didn't like Billy Nelson, and stuff like that. But then I wanted him, then we were looking at the Rolly Romero fight, and I was like, you beat Rolly Romero. You could unify against the winner of Garcia Barrios. But with Conor, it's money now. And I think because he's been in trouble in that respect, I think he wants to just rack it up. Do you know what I mean? And I don't blame him either if you don't think you're going to go on and do all those things. So as far as his position with the WBC, Maurizio texted me tonight actually, one of literally 200 people in boxing about the situation. For me, the most interesting thing that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks is the Jai Opetaia fight, because that's for the ZUFFA Cruiserweight World title, and the IBF will not be allowed to do what they normally do. There is no way, in my opinion, that ZUFFA will allow them to do that, and they will have to make a decision. If it was Maurizio Sulaiman, the decision would already be made. The belt's off the line, and that will be the moment where everything changes. So where fighters that go that way will no longer be able to be a recognised world champion, and that will be a historic moment for the sport and a sad day for the sport, because that will be the big freeze out. But as far as I'm concerned, you might as well get on with it, because that's what you're going to do. So whether you allow it at the beginning of March or not, it's going to happen. And I think the governing bodies will probably put their foot down and say, these are the rules. Can you confirm we'll be allowed to do this? And the answer will be no, or they just won't reply. And then they'll act. So, but I think maybe Conor in the short term, Conor might be happy to fight for the ZUFFA Welterweight World Championship. But it won't be like sitting there with his dad with the WBC title on the wall, knowing that he was a two-time world champion and one of the greatest British fighters of all time.
Obviously, Conor mentioned in his statement he'd still like to have a partnership with yourself and Matchroom. How realistic do you think that is, or do you think it's down the bridges?
I don't know what that partnership looks like. I mean, I wasn't planning on sitting underneath Dana White at the press conference and, doing his shoelaces or whatever it's going to be, but we can work together. He can fight Josh Kelly. I mean, again, that's another world. That. Those kind of fights for me, I think 154 actually is going to be the weight class that Conor Benn sort of migrates to. And, I mentioned it a few times over the last week. I don't know if that made Conor jump ship, but Conor Benn against Josh Kelly at the Stadium of Light is, it's 50,000 for whatever it is. But, I also understand that Conor's a big star, and sometimes you don't want to. It's weird when some people like that don't want to give the other guy like Josh Kelly the fight, even though they're challenging for the title. No, I get it, because he's looking at Ryan Garcia, but it's a big fight, so we'll have to see.
Eddie, we spoke about earlier what you kind of went through the last few years defending Conor because you believed him. After everything this week, do you still believe him now?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'm not going to start hanging him out to dry because you can only really act how you feel at the time. And I believed him at the time. That's what I did. Obviously, this has made me question a lot of things and his character as well. But it's not. I'm not sitting and saying, "Oh, I'm denying about that," because he convinced me that he wasn't, and I believed him. And I believed him, and that's why I backed him to the hill.